the night I opened a drawer in my own house and found papers Lily and Evan swore they had never seen something shifted. If you've ever sensed a storm rising inside your own family, tell me about it in the comments. I still remember that afternoon at Lake Harriet, the three of us walking along the path as if nothing had shifted between us. Lily talked about a work project. Evan added a comment that didn't quite land, and the conversation thinned out. Their pauses had an edge I couldn't place, the kind that makes you listen harder without knowing why. Evan asked how I'd been handling the house. "Must feel different living there by yourself now," he said, tone light, but shaped in a way that made me look at him twice. "It's manageable," I answered. "Routine helps." Lily's voice cut across mine. "We don't need to talk about that today." I asked whether she had sorted out the loan she mentioned last month. Her jaw tightened. "Can we not bring that up here?" "There was no judgment," I said. She didn't reply. We kept moving along the lakeshore. A fisherman drifted nearby, adjusting some gear. The water was calm enough to reflect the boats moored farther out. Evan slowed behind me. Lily stepped to my left, her arms crossed, tapping her thumb against her elbow, a habit she picked up when she wanted a conversation to end. Evan cleared his throat. "You ever think about downsizing? Ray might be easier on you." "Not yet," I said. "I'm fine where I am." A short breath came from Lily, one she tried to hide. "I told you, Dad, you don't have to push yourself so hard." My foot hit a patch of uneven dirt. Before I could regain balance, a force from behind drove straight into my back. No warning, no stumble, a deliberate shove. The lake surged up to meet me, shock ripping through my chest as the cold wrapped around my ribs. Sound blurred. My arms fought to surface, but the cold pulled harder. Above the waterline, Lily screamed my name. "Dad." The pitch carried strain, yet something in it felt rehearsed, too measured. A boat scraped closer. The fisherman reached over, grabbed my forearm, and hauled me towards the side of his craft. My breath came in broken bursts as he steadied me. "You okay, sir? Stay with me." Evan's voice floated from the shore. "He slipped. He just slipped." The fisherman shot him a look but kept helping me until another bystander rushed over. My legs felt weak when they guided me back onto solid ground. Lily hovered, brushing wet leaves from my sleeve, eyes wide, but not shaken the way you expect from someone terrified for a parent. "You fell so fast," she said. "We didn't know what happened." Evan kept repeating the same line to the crowd. "He tripped, that's all. Just tripped." Their words overlapped, but neither came close enough to meet my gaze. The fisherman spoke to someone about calling for medical help. As I caught my breath, Lily leaned near her face, angled above mine. For a moment her expression settled, no panic, no relief, only a calculation I didn't understand. The memory of that look stayed with me long after the water stopped dripping from my clothes. Marcia Boyd adjusted the cuff on my arm, her posture steady while she checked the monitor. "You came in with hypothermia risk," she said. "How are you feeling now?" "Better than earlier," I answered, throat still coarse. Her manner carried caution, as though she measured every word before releasing it. She made a note on her chart, then stepped back as two officers paused near the doorway. Their voices traveled down the hall, overlapping with a nurse's comment about a statement someone had given. One officer said, "The daughter told us he stepped backward during a conversation." Another added, "Husband didn't say much, just nodded." The words drifted through the gap in the curtain. A faint pulse of tension ran across my shoulders. No one had asked me anything yet, but the story had already taken on a shape I didn't recognize. Marcia pushed the curtain aside, gave the officers a signal, and they entered. "Mr. Keller, we'd like to clarify a few points," one of them said. "Nothing formal. We just want to understand what happened near the lake." "Go ahead," I replied. "Do you remember slipping or losing balance?" Not clearly, I said. Things happened fast. Your daughter mentioned you backed up mid-sentence. I don't recall doing that. He jotted down a note. Anyone arguing any medical issues we should know about? No arguments, I said. No conditions that would cause that kind of fall. The questions moved at a steady pace. They waited for me to accuse someone, or maybe hoped I'd dismiss everything. Neither option felt right. I wish I could give you more clarity, I said. My memory hasn't settled. They thanked me and stepped out. Marcia remained near the foot of the bed, studying my face. That story about slipping, she murmured, doesn't match where the boater said he pulled you from. He said the current didn't carry you. Her tone carried no accusation, just concern shaped by years of watching families explain away harm. Is there a way to get his full report? I asked. I can request it, she said. Might take a little time, but he already left a statement with the triage nurse. A moment passed before she moved to adjust a line connected to my arm. Footsteps came from the corridor, brisk and uneven. Lily appeared, first pushing the curtain aside, her expression arranged into something overly warm. Dad, thank God, she said. We were so scared. Evan followed, shoulders tense. His eyes flicked to mine, then to the floor. Marcia stepped back to give us space. You should have told us you weren't feeling well, Lily said. You looked pale earlier. I don't think that was the issue, I replied. She placed a stack of papers on the side table. These are the forms for billing. If you sign the authorization, the hospital can use the old account we shared for emergencies. That account isn't active anymore, I said. I'll handle it myself. A slight tremor crossed her mouth before she forced a smile. We're just trying to help. You always take everything on alone. Evan cleared his throat. Maybe this is all a misunderstanding, he said. Accidents happen. His reluctance to meet my eyes told a different story. Not guilt exactly, more like strategy. Lily touched my blanket as if reassuring both of us she still belonged in this room. Are they keeping you overnight? She asked. Not sure yet. Waiting on a few more checks. We can stay. No need, I said, keeping my voice even. I'll update you. She nodded slowly, though her focus strayed toward Evan. We just want what's best for you. Marcia returned with a chart and stood at the edge of the group. He needs rest, she said, directing them towards the hallway. Lily leaned over, straightened the corner of my blanket again, then stepped back. Call us if anything changes. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder, guiding her out. Their steps faded, but not before they exchanged a quick look, one that carried no fear, no relief, no nervous laughter from surviving a close call. It was a glance that measured consequences rather than emotions. Marcia pulled the curtain halfway closed and checked the IV. Do you want me to move your phone here? Please, I said. She set it by my hand. Her voice lowered. If something doesn't feel right, trust that. People rarely fall the way you did. A nod was all I could manage. The room steadied around me, though my thoughts kept circling the same point the tone Lily used in her statement, the silence Evan held on to the way both avoided saying anything that required real concern. Marcia left to file her notes. The hallway carried a few distant calls from staff managing the evening flow. A transport team rolled a gurney past, then the space settled again, in a rhythm familiar to hospitals, steady movement, purposeful, never still. Through the gap in the curtain, Lily and Evan appeared one last time as they reached the end of the corridor. They slowed, exchanged another brief glance, and continued toward the exit. The desk officer nodded when I gave my name, then directed me toward an interview room. The walk felt longer than it should have. A detective joined me a moment later carrying a tablet and a stack of forms. What brings you back today, Mr. Keller? He asked. I'd like to add to my statement, I said. And I want to review any camera footage from the lake. I'm trying to confirm what I remember. His brow lifted slightly as if weighing how far to go. We can look into that. We did receive an early summary from the boater who helped you. He mentioned your fall didn't look accidental. The note of caution in his tone suggested he expected resistance rather than cooperation. I'd appreciate seeing whatever's available, I said. He left to check with the digital team. A second detective entered younger carrying a printout. Footage around that area is limited, she said, but there was a report that someone on a fishing boat had a GoPro running. They were testing settings. The angle might catch part of the shoreline. The two detectives exchanged a brief look, then gestured for me to follow. We stepped into a smaller tech room, where a technician cued the clip. The moment the video started, my chest tightened. The shoreline appeared in the background, Lily and Evan standing close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Evan shifted behind me, just as I remembered, and then his hands pushed forward. The shove happened in less than a second, yet the intent was unmistakable. My fingers curled. A pulse moved up my arm, but my face stayed still. The technician paused the clip. "Do you want it replayed?" he asked. "No, I've seen enough." Silence settled among the group, the kind that doesn't require any analysis. They all knew what it implied. The younger detective took a breath. "Mr. Keller, has there been tension between you and your daughter, financial disagreements? Anything that might help us understand this? Lily and I don't always agree," I said, "but nothing that suggested something like this." "What about your son-in-law?" "We've had conversations, disagreements. He wanted me to support a few ventures. I declined." They noted each point carefully. "Any recent loans transfers life changes." "Nothing worth mentioning." It wasn't entirely true, but part of me resisted handing over every detail. Not yet. Their questions kept probing, searching for motive history patterns. A small part of me wondered whether something in my own behavior had pushed Lily into darker choices. Had I been too withdrawn? Too focused on work? Too stubborn about boundaries she didn't understand? The detectives shifted toward procedural matters. "We'll need to review your financial accounts," one said. "Standard in cases involving possible intent. It helps us track pressure points." Pressure points. The phrase lingered in my thoughts longer than it should have. When they finished, I signed a form, allowing them limited access to my records. The pen felt heavier than expected. After the paperwork, they escorted me back to the front, saying they would update me once they verified the footage. My phone buzzed the moment I stepped through the lobby doors. A text from Lily. "I hope you're not making this harder than it has to be." No explanation. No apology for the situation we were all in. The wording struck like a warning disguised as concern. A breath escaped me before I started walking toward the lot. The day had worn itself into my shoulders. Thoughts pulled in different directions, one part insisting I confront her, another cautioning me to wait. The memories of our earlier years together surfaced, softer ones where she clung to me during thunderstorms, or called when college felt overwhelming. Those versions of her stood in conflict with the image captured by the GoPro. A second message arrived from an investigator. "We'll need documentation for any assets held solely in your name. Please send by end of week." The scope of this mess widened faster than I could process. They weren't just looking at the incident, they were mapping motives, potential gains, every financial thread connecting us. Reaching my car, I slowed. A late-model sedan parked across the row drew attention. Evans. The license plate and dented bumper confirmed it. The windows reflected the building behind me, preventing any glimpse of who sat there. The law office sat on a corner in St. Paul, a place I'd driven past for years, without ever needing to enter. The receptionist directed me toward a small conference room, where attorney Michael Rudd met me with a brief nod. "Detectives contacted us," he said. They mentioned possible financial exposure on your end. Tell me what you're looking to secure. I want clarity on my accounts and anything tied to my name, I said. They requested access to review my assets. I need to know if anything unusual has been opened or altered. He opened his laptop and tapped through a series of databases. Let's start with insurance. That's usually where red flags appear. His tone stayed even practiced from years of handling family disputes disguised as paperwork issues. After a few minutes, he stopped scrolling and angled the screen slightly toward me. Mr. Keller, did you authorize a life insurance policy 2 weeks ago, one valued at $8.5 million? My hands rested on the table, but the muscles in my forearm stiffened. No, I said. I didn't sign anything like that. The policy lists your daughter and son-in-law as beneficiaries. He clicked to enlarge the signature page. My name appeared in looping strokes that resembled mine, but the pressure slant and spacing felt off, like someone trying too hard to imitate a rhythm they didn't understand. A few seconds slipped by before my voice returned. Where did they get my signature? He compared it with older documents I'd signed over the years. Not from you, he said. This was forged, no question. The weight of that statement landed without theatrics. Motivation sharpened instantly. If the policy processed my death would have paid out a sum large enough to erase their debts fund their future and bury any hesitation they once had. The logic sat cold and simple planning opportunity and reward. Old memories pressed forward the times Lily asked for loans to stay afloat, the requests for me to co-sign the night she cried about overdue bills after Evan's failed investment. Each moment took on a harsher edge, as though the past had been preparing the ground for this turning point. Michael closed the laptop. You need to file for legal protection immediately. Freeze access to all accounts, revoke any shared permissions, and notify the Insurance Fraud Division. This is no longer a family misunderstanding. It's a criminal matter. I understand. I'll prepare the forms. Sign them today, if possible. We'll also issue a cease access order for any accounts Lily or Evan could reach. The pen moved across the pages without hesitation. Each signature felt like a step away from the version of my life I thought I understood. When the paperwork was done, he walked me to the reception area. We'll coordinate with investigators. Expect more questions in the next few days, and avoid direct contact with them until we know how far this goes. I stepped out onto the street, the air carrying a dull chill. Before I reached the end of the block, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. Hello? Lily's voice followed steady in a way that caught me off guard. Dad, what's going on? Evan said you met with the police. Her calmness felt practiced, almost rehearsed. They asked for clarification, I said. Routine steps. You didn't need to involve them this much. Her words carried neither anger nor fear, just an unsettling flatness. This isn't a conversation for the phone, I replied. Dad, please don't blow this up. We can talk later. The call ended abruptly, leaving a faint click in my ear. No apology, no concern about the lake, only confusion over why I hadn't kept everything contained. The fraud division at Hennepin County Government Center processed cases with a speed that suggested long familiarity with chaos. A clerk guided me to a counter where an investigator named Renner reviewed the folder I brought. He flipped through the forged policy, the comparison signatures, and the letter from my attorney. This contract was altered after submission, he said. See the metadata, someone modified beneficiary fields and replaced the digital timestamp. Is that common? I asked. It's deliberate, he said. Not a clerical mistake. He scanned a few more pages, then fed them through a secure copier. We'll log this as suspected identity fraud tied to attempted insurance payout. You'll receive updates as the review moves forward. His tone stayed professional, but the fact that he didn't seem surprised unsettled me more than shock would have. After signing the last form, I returned to the lobby. The hum of foot traffic carried through the wide hall. Halfway to the exit, Lily stood near a column arms folded expression tense. She stepped toward me before I had a chance to pass. "Dad, why are you doing this?" Her voice trembled slightly, yet her eyes measured my reaction more than my well-being. "I submitted the documents they asked for," I said. "You're making everything worse." "By telling the truth?" She swallowed, looking briefly toward the security desk. "You didn't need to drag investigators into our family matters." "This isn't a family matter, Lily. A forged policy isn't a misunderstanding." Her jaw shifted. "You act like we're capable of something awful. You treat Evan with the same cold judgment you've always had for me." The words struck harder than I expected. Part of me searched for a path where she had been manipulated, pressured, pushed by circumstances I hadn't seen. The memory of her sitting at my kitchen table years ago, asking for help with tuition and promising she'd pay me back, returned with a sting. "Lily," I said, "if you needed something." "We needed you to trust us," she said. "But you never do. You think the worst of people." She shook her head, then brushed past me and headed toward the escalator. Her exit left a hollow weight behind. A text arrived before I reached the doors. Detective Feldman wrote, "We need access to your safe deposit boxes. Records show your daughter granted her husband secondary authorization at 2 branches. That stopped me completely. I hadn't allowed anyone access to those boxes, not even Lily. The implication didn't require imagination. Whatever boundary I believed still existed had already been crossed. Renner passed behind me carrying new files. I stepped aside to let him through, trying to gather my thoughts. They weren't lining up. Too many years of trying to be a steady father clashed with the trail of evidence forming around us. My phone rang again, Marcia. "I heard from the boater," she said. "He wants to speak to you directly. He remembered details about your fall and asked whether the police had followed up." "Did he say what kind of details?" "Not over the phone. He said he saw where you were standing before you went under. Thought you might want that in your statement." I thanked her for calling. She added, "Take care of yourself, Raymond. You're dealing with a lot at once." The call ended as I stepped outside. The air had cooled, carrying scattered voices from people leaving work. I moved down the steps, trying to decide whether to call the detective immediately or wait until the division contacted me again. A door swung open on the side of the building. Evan emerged, hands in his pockets, walking with a deliberate pace. He spotted me almost instantly and halted. His face revealed nothing. No guilt, no confusion, no attempt at friendliness. We stood across the walkway, separated by 20 feet and months of tension. His stare held steady for several seconds. Long enough to signal awareness, long enough to show he wasn't surprised I was here. Then he turned and continued down the sidewalk without a word. I remained still, watching the back of his jacket blend with the flow of pedestrians. Something about his posture, the certainty in it, cut deeper than anything he'd said at the hospital. A bus hissed as it pulled to the curb. People filtered around me, moving with their own tasks and problems, unaware of the rupture working its way through my life. My phone buzzed again, another message from the detective, asking for a preferred time to follow up. The Federal Investigations Office operated with a precision that made every interaction feel decisive. A technician named Alvarez greeted me, then walked me through a secured hallway toward a workstation. "We pulled logs from the insurer's portal," he said. "Your policy file was accessed several times on the day it was created." "By whom?" I asked. He enlarged a report on the screen. "Logan originated from a residential IP address registered under your daughter's name. Same device she used for prior applications tied to her student loans." The statement landed with a dull weight. Proof, not suspicion. Something in me loosened for a moment, not relief, but the sense that the truth no longer depended on my word against theirs. Alvarez continued, "This is strong evidence you didn't sign that contract. Digital signatures carry a footprint that's difficult to fake." A sliver of hope formed, though it sat uneasily beside everything else unraveling. He clicked another file. "There's something else. The carrier logs all confirmation calls. The system flagged anomalies in one recording. We isolated it." He handed me a set of headphones. "It's short 20 seconds. Someone spoke softly, probably to avoid detection. But listen closely." The audio began with a representative stating a reference number, then a woman answered. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "Yes, that's correct. Proceed with the beneficiary update. Thank you." The cadence, the clipped phrasing, the habit of pausing before certain words, they were painfully familiar. She had used that same rhythm years ago while completing financial aid forms at my kitchen table. "That's her," I said barely above a breath. "We thought so," Alvarez replied. "We'll authenticate it formally, but the markers align." Before I could respond, a knock came at the door. A federal agent stepped in holding a printed alert. "Update on your case," he said. "Your son-in-law accessed one of your secondary accounts an hour ago. Funds were moved, then the account was frozen. Looks like an attempt to obscure a trail." "How much was taken?" "We're still tracing it, enough to raise concern." Any sense of regained footing vanished. Everything kept shifting faster than I could react. Each new finding forced a different calculation. The agent continued, "We'll need access to all accounts linked to your Social Security number. This isn't optional at this stage." I signed the authorization forms he presented. The pen scratched across the paper, steady in motion even as the ground beneath the situation seemed to tilt further. My phone buzzed while the agents filed the documents. A long text from Lily filled the screen. "Dad, I don't know why things are getting out of hand. Evan is upset. I'm confused. I don't understand what you told the investigators. We're your family. You're hurting us more than you think. Just talk to us." The mix of accusation and pleading knotted something in my chest. The tone felt desperate, yet calculated enough to plant doubt where logic said none should exist. Alvarez glanced at the message over my shoulder. "I need to advise you," he said. "Limit contact with them. This is escalating and direct communication could jeopardize your safety or the investigation." "She's still my daughter," I said. "I know. But until we map this out, distance is important. People under stress sometimes take risks you wouldn't expect." He printed a transcript of the call recording and slid it across the desk. "Keep this. You'll need it for the formal case file." The page felt heavier than paper should. 20 seconds of audio-frozen proof of something I never imagined confronting in my own family. Alvarez gathered his notes. "We'll follow up when the financial trace updates. In the meantime, stay reachable but cautious." I stepped into the corridor, the document folded in my hand. Voices carried from an office down the hall, agents coordinating the next steps. The pace and purpose of the building contrasted sharply with the confusion running through my thoughts. Another message from Lily appeared as I reached the exit. "Dad, please answer. I'm scared. Tell me what's happening." Her words clashed with the recording still echoing in my mind. The tension between who she once was and who she appeared to be now pressed against every memory I had of her. Detective Feldman met me at the entrance and led me through a series of short corridors until we reached a small review room. 2 monitors waited on the table. "We've compiled all available footage," he said. "It's better if you see everything together." He played the first clip, the GoPro from the fishing boat. The resolution was sharper than the earlier version I'd seen. Evan stood behind me at the lakeshore, shifting his weight as he scanned the area. His head turned left, then right, checking for witnesses. Lily angled her body, leaning in just enough to block part of his motion. Then the shove. Quick practiced without hesitation. The second clip came from a park camera positioned farther away. The angle made Lily's posture clearer. She didn't flinch, didn't reach forward, didn't startle. Her stance remained firm, one hand slightly raised as if she were steadying her balance, rather than reacting to a fall. Feldman paused the footage. "Given everything we've uncovered, do you have any doubts about what happened that day?" "No," I said. "Not anymore." Acceptance settled in without drama. Whatever softness remained in me had run its course. Every detail, every excuse I'd tried to imagine on Lily's behalf collapsed under what I'd just watched. Feldman opened a folder. We found emails between Evan and a financial broker. They discussed expected payout timing on a policy matching the forged one. Messages started 10 days before your fall. A rustle of paper followed. They were preparing for a disbursement. They mentioned needing funds as soon as possible. No surge of anger rose. Only clarity, cold, unmistakable clarity. "We're filing for arrest warrants this afternoon," Feldman said. "Procedurally, we need to ask, would you prefer to avoid the custody process when we pick them up? Or do you want to be present to confirm identity?" "Neither," I replied. "Handle it however the department normally would. I don't need special involvement." He nodded. "Understood. You'll be notified once they're in custody." As he gathered the folders, my phone vibrated. Marcia's name appeared. "Raymond," she said when I answered. The boater reached out again. "He remembered you weren't standing near the slippery section of the path. He said he's willing to testify if needed. Please, thank him for me." "I will. Let me know if you need anything." Her steadiness offered a small anchor in the middle of everything else shifting. When the call ended, Feldman re-entered with another sheet. "Your attorney contacted us. He uncovered something new. That old joint authorization with Lily. She used it a year ago to access a safe deposit box under your name. The branch logged her entry. She removed documents, retirement papers, investment summaries. We're still reviewing exactly what she took." The information lodged deeper than I expected. Was that before or after Evan's debts started piling up? "After," he said. "About 3 months after." The picture had already been dark. Now it sharpened further. The insurance policy wasn't the only motive. They'd been searching my life for leverage long before the shove at the lake. Feldman stepped aside to answer a call coming through his radio. Static crackled, followed by a clipped voice. "Unit 4 reporting subjects located at their residence. Warrant team is moving in." He listened carefully, then lowered the receiver. "They've found them," he said. "Team's entering the apartment now." We walked toward the exit together. Officers moved past us, some heading to vehicles, others returning from unrelated assignments. The building carried the steady current of an institution always balancing urgency and routine. At the doorway, I paused. A dispatch officer hurried by, radio pressed to her shoulder. "Copy subject secured. Repeat secured." She didn't notice me standing there. Her voice blended with the shuffle of other officers preparing reports, answering calls, updating logs. The first hearing at Hennepin County District Court drew a modest crowd, attorneys, officers, clerks moving through their routines. Lily sat at the defense table with her head-bent hair draped over her shoulder. Evan kept his gaze low, jaw tight, as though bracing for a sentence that had already begun forming long before today. A bailiff guided me to a seat near the front. The room carried a muted tension. Not grief, not outrage, just the steady pulse of a system handling another case of family turning on itself. The judge entered, and the clerk announced the charges. The prosecutor rose. "Your Honor, we intend to demonstrate premeditation and coordinated fraud. Evidence includes video capture authentication logs, forged documentation, and witness accounts." He referenced the GoPro footage first. Screens displayed the moment Evan scanned his surroundings before the shove and the simultaneous stance of Lily leaning just enough to obscure movement. No commentary was needed. The room absorbed it in a near collective breath. Next came the forged policy. "Metadata shows alteration," the prosecutor said. "Beneficiaries changed. Signature falsified." Then the whispered confirmation call. Hearing Lily's voice through the courtroom speakers, even softened by the low tone she'd used, created an ache I didn't try to hide. It wasn't anger. It was the recognition of something long ignored, now undeniable. Email logs followed tying Evan to a broker who discussed projected payout dates. "These communications predate the incident by 10 days, the prosecutor added. "This indicates planning, not impulse." The boater testified, briefly explaining what he saw at the lake. Straightforward, unembellished. He described the angle of my fall, the lack of struggle between Lily and Evan, and his instinct that something felt off the moment he sped his boat toward me. When the prosecution rested, the defense attempted to redirect blame toward stress, financial strain, misinterpretation of actions. None of it held. The facts outweighed every attempt at reframing. The judge read the findings. Evan Brooks is charged with attempted first-degree murder and insurance fraud. He paused before continuing. Lily Keller is charged with aiding and abetting falsification of documents and participation in attempted fraud. Neither of them looked at me. No apology, no breakdown, no display of regret. Just the slow acceptance of consequences closing in around them. And strangely, that absence of emotion made everything clearer. Some fractures don't heal because they weren't created by accident. They were carved by choices repeated over time. The hearing ended with procedural instructions. People stood, gathered their files, adjusted jackets. Life resumed its usual rhythm, even as mine settled into a new shape. In the hallway, Marcia waited by a bench. "How'd it go?" she asked. "It went the way it needed to," I said. She studied my expression as though checking for signs of strain. "What's next for you?" "I'm shifting everything into a trust," I said. "No more shared permissions. I'll return to work soon. And after that, I'm thinking about renting a small cabin up north for a while. Somewhere quiet enough to think, but not so far that I disappear from the rest of my life." "Bah, that sounds like a solid plan," she said. "You've carried a lot these past weeks." We stepped outside together. A stream of attorneys passed down the steps talking about unrelated cases. Cars circled the block, drivers honking at delays, pedestrians weaving through the crosswalks with purpose. Marcia gave my arm a light touch. "You know where to find me if you need anything." "I do, thank you." She headed toward the parking ramp. I turned the opposite direction, moving down the wide stone steps that opened onto the street. The courthouse didn't loom the way it once had. It simply stood behind me, part of the landscape, now not the weight it had been. People moved around me in steady motion, carrying bags, checking phones, meeting friends for lunch. No one knew what had unfolded inside, and no one needed to. My life didn't hinge on their understanding. The sidewalk stretched forward, offering a path without instruction. I blended into the flow, letting the momentum carry me toward whatever came next.